Before we get started, I thought I'd start with some of the things that I hear the most, and that is, Dr. O'Neill, more stories, or I love your stories so much, can you add some more? So I'm going to sort them in two different categories. This particular category is the stories of inspiration. Because when you go to a sex positive event, yes, it is all the things that the promoter will tell you it is. And you know what else it is? It's an opportunity for you to grow. You can personally grow, you can educate yourself, you can learn, you can find acceptance for yourself, maybe for the first time. There's so many things that happen with sex along the way. We all get hijacked in one way or another by either our caregiver, our culture, the way we're socialized, you name it. And even worse, as you know. That to go to a sex positive event, it is like sandbox for grown-ups. And you can see a lot of poor behavior. We'll cover those here in a minute, but gosh, there can be so much inspiration that you don't even know. So I'm going to highlight some of the ones where I have been inspired along the way. Wow, this was by far the biggest surprise and one of my first surprises. I was at a sex positive resort, minding my own business. It was the second time I had ever been to something like this, and lots of people were engaging sexually, swinging from the rafters, hanging out at the pool, wall to wall, all out. And this woman came in. She looked to be maybe mid-40s, fairly young, and she came in by herself. That was interesting because everybody else that I had seen was coming in as couples. She came in by herself. All right, no big thing. She came in, and when she came to the pool after she checked in, she was post-mastectomy, and she was fairly new post-mastectomy because you could still see her scars. And I was flabbergasted by the courage that she had. And she had to face a lot of people who had been working on their A game to get to this resort for weeks, I'm sure. But you know what was just so moving about her? She held her own. She wasn't out there to swing. Sex, actually, I actually befriended her and spoke to her. Sex was the least of her interest and the least of her stress. The biggest thing and the only win that she had in her mind was to come, to disrobe, and to be seen. And it wasn't even about all the strangers, whether they accepted her or not. It was about her. It was about her acceptance. It was about her facing her identity, what she was and what she was not. And it was incredibly moving. In the class, I'm going to go into the story a little bit more, but what I want you to get from this inspirational story is that going to sex positive events can absolutely be about acceptance. Yours for yourself, yours for your body, yours for your groove, yours for what you believe is true and possible for you. That was moving, and it moves me still. You can find acceptance at sex positive events. Here's a story about opening. I like to give things titles. Again, fairly new to the lifestyle at a sex positive resort, I saw a woman. A single woman surrounded by 4 or 5 men. And these 4 or 5 men were each taking their turns and anxiously awaiting with hard-ons intact to take their turn. One or more was holding her, not necessarily holding her down against her will. That's not what this was about. they were supporting her while everybody else was engaging with her. It was really hot, but what was even more to the point, I couldn't take my eyes off it. First, I was afraid, I'll admit. First, I was afraid for her. Then I stood there and studied it, watched it from a distance. Make sure you covered this face. I had never seen anything like that. Consensual. And was it gangbang? Probably somebody could call it that. More like it was goddess worship. And you know what was just astounding to me, what was so moving, was how she took her time. She took her time to roll with the waves of pleasure that they were giving her. She took her time. She did not hurry up and give them theirs or whatever. And you know what? I actually had to duck to the side because I fell apart in tears. I couldn't believe that a woman could receive that much pleasure, not be in a hurry. The men were not in a hurry. Wow, I had to come apart to just say, whoa, how about the opening of understanding that you can have that much pleasure. Women love and can have that much pleasure. Another one I call it tour guide. Tour guide. Again, there was a lot of mistake making in my early days and a lot of beautiful things that happened. And this was one of the early day experiences. As I'm sitting on my chaise lounge, probably like this. I would like to think I wasn't, but I'm sure I probably was. A man befriended me, and he did the right thing by connecting with my partner, but then he got to know me. He wanted to know what I was about. And when I told him, hey, this is like, I've only been out, this is like my third resort visit. He said, hey, let me show you around. And it was as if I had a tour guide, voyeur, master, and we went around the resort and he pointed things out. Watch how she allows this. Watch how she wants this. Watch how he comes to her. Look at that. What do you think about those two? What do you think's happening there? My gosh, his tour guideness changed my whole life. Maybe that's why I'm Dr. O'Neill today. Maybe. I don't know. But I was not Dr. O'Neill 10 years ago. But it was fascinating to me to see through his eyes the vignettes, the care, the takedown, the negotiation. And so what I want to tell you is when you get there, whatever the nature of the event is, make sure to slow down, take your time, and watch, because you will learn so much. Whether you engage sexually with somebody or not, if you keep your eyes open and you look around and watch couples engage and watch them in the aftercare, watch them in the afterglow, watch them in the drama, man, you're going to come away with so much. A great education, and certainly a lot of things to play in your mind with in fantasy play later. And this last story is about exchange. We think that going to sex positive events is about sharing our genitals. Yes, it is. And pleasure and fun and partying and all of those things. Yes, it is. Sandbox for grown-ups. I've been saying that. Yes, it is. And you know what else? In addition to all of that, it's about exchange of humanity, exchange of human beings. I found myself a long way away from home. I had spent a lot of time and effort to get there because I had committed to being there. And we were on a sailboat and everything was crazy getting after it. And you know what? I wasn't into it. I certainly have been into it. I certainly can be into it, but there were some things going on in my life that just had me in a different place emotionally. And as I'm staring out at the ocean while everybody else is in an orgy behind me, contemplating my life, all of that, a man came over to sit down. Not surprising. Figured he was going to hit me up, and he did. And when I said, hey, you know what? I don't really have the bandwidth for it right now. Thank you. He actually took the time to ask, what's going on with you? Right? What's happening with you? My father had passed away, so it was a pretty dramatic thing that had just happened prior to the trip. And I was just catching up with all of the feelings in many ways. All to say this. Yeah, the orgy was going on behind there. But the exchange that I had with this human being, he had some tattoos that placed him in the same era, same background as my dad. And in that moment, the exchange we had, human to human, by far and away, meant more to me than his hard cock ever would have. I will never forget that. And we are still friends to this day. So don't underestimate what being naked and the vulnerability that that brings can create for you. It might be a sexual exchange. It might be a whole slew of new sexual skill sets. Yeah, right on. Certainly, it'll mean a lot of new friends. But that conversation and the things he said to me move me still. So, please understand that the vulnerability trip that you're taking can take all kinds of turns. Look for it because it is there too for you to have.